morning. What a great conference and gathering it has been. Usually I go to conferences and within, I guess the whole length of it, maybe 10% of speakers might be interesting. Today, every one of the speakers have been amazing. So I would like you to join me on giving an amazing round of applause to all the great speakers so far. It has been amazing. And how wonderful it was to hear the life stories of every one of the speakers, just unbelievable. I'd like to share with you a bit of my life story. Actually, comes from my grandmother's. Many people ask me, why do you go and talk in so many conferences about the rights of women, especially on education? About 90 years ago, as a refugee from Russia, at the time of Stalin, my grandmother took her 3 children and her family's other unwanted children whose parents were arrested, and as refugees came to Iran. And she settled in a very religious community on northern part of Iran. She had an amazing will. She decided to open the first school for women in a very religious city. And you can imagine her efforts were opposed by people who thought women would become prostitutes if they are educated. Think about that. So we have come a long way, but this is just the beginning. Let's talk about that. We are at the cusp of innovation economy. Economies started with agriculture, then industrial economy, then knowledge economy. But now we are at the beginning of innovation economy, the last 10 years or so. What is so peculiar about innovation economy? If I had to define it with one word, it would be disruption. Disruption. It's the first time in evolution of our species that we can see huge change is going to come. To have disruption, you need change. The old men in charge of majority of the countries, majority of power structures all over the world, do not like change. Young boys and girls love change. To come with disruption, you need to overcome your fear of failure. Old people do not like to even try. They have a lot to lose. Young boys and girls have nothing to lose. They're just young. And many of them go to school. The lucky ones graduate and find out they don't have jobs. Up to now, they haven't had a chance. But because of innovation economy, the world is changing. All you need is good brains and access to broadband to educate yourself and use your brains to generate wealth. If we look at different stages of education, it was first education 1.0. It was about content, about knowledge. Education 2.0 was using the broadband, digitization, distributed all over. Education 3.0 is not about just having ideas. Ideas are all over. It's not just having knowledge. Actually, Many times you think greatest ideas have been around for so many years. We think Google was a great idea. It was the seventh search engine. Seventh after InfoSeek, AltaVista, Excite, Ask Jeeves, Yahoo. Innovation economy is about implementation and execution. Education 3.0 is about collaboration. I advise many governments as I travel all over the world. Many people want to see me because I have had 3 unicorn IPOs. But what people don't know, and I often talk about it, but doesn't seem to register, is I've also had 3 major failures. And the fact that I was fired twice, and I did not give up and learned from my failures and went and tried to do something new was a huge part for my successes in the entrepreneurship. Many times when I talk to ministers of education, I see they have a fear. In one of the countries I advise, in Africa, they shut down internet for a whole day. When I asked them why, they said, we are having our national exams for our high school students going to university. We don't want them to use their mobile phones, smartphones, to get the answers, to cheat. And I said, what kind of education is it that somebody with a mobile phone and access to broadband in 5 minutes can find out all the answers? Are you teaching the right things? Well, let's talk about what sorts of things are possible. I-techpreneurship is high-tech entrepreneurship leveraged by broadband, empowering young people to use their brains to create jobs, to create wealth. And with wealth and jobs, the society changes. If there is one thing I would like you to walk away from my talk, is remember this pyramid that I learned about it 40 years ago, that really drove all my 10 companies and all the investments I did later on as a venture capitalist. Everything we do, we can do it manually. Let's look at finance. This was as a talk I was giving to the economists at World Bank. Manual finance is not so effective. Mechanical finance using abacus is a little bit better. Electromechanical increases your productivity. Microelectronics, the first calculator, significantly raised the productivity and the value of the corporations who were using that. When PCs came with spreadsheet software, the world changed. But if you want to stay relevant in the future, you need to learn about blockchain, about distributed databases, about different forms of ledgers. So as we are looking into this pyramid, the job of an entrepreneur is to figure out in whatever field, regardless of which field it is, when is the time that you could use this chart to know a shift is happening, a disruption is happening. You saw how this disruption was coming along in all the presentations that the speakers were showing us today. The top of it is algorithmic content, artificial intelligence. It used to be very, very difficult to have access to that. But it actually changed algorithmic content changed the whole value system on Wall Street. If we looked at the 10 highest value companies in 2009, the list included big oil companies, a lot of retail stores that did not understand the power of the disruption. And the list today is Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, Google, Facebook, Tencent, Alibaba. Many of these companies did not even exist 20 years ago. They were all started by young people using their brains to come up and create wealth and a lot of jobs. As we are looking at this, we say, where are we going? Well, we have had this vision to help create 10 million innovation jobs across developing countries in Africa, in Middle East, in Southeast Asia, in Central Asia, and in Latin America. A huge project, the biggest project that my wife and I have ever attempted to work on in our foundation. It started 4 years ago. We are making good progress, but we still have a long way to go. But why is it that we are really optimistic that this is going to happen? It actually would be much bigger than what we are seeing. Well, first of all, AI is a huge, huge exponential factor. And you don't need to go to Carnegie Mellon, to MIT, to Stanford to get a PhD to learn about AI. Today, thanks to technology created by Polyop, all free, available to all K-12 schools, any child can learn about the basics of algorithmic content. But that's not enough. If you only teach children algorithmic content, they go and become hedge fund managers. They go and do quantitative financing. They go and become masters of managing derivatives, high-stakes gambling. If you teach them creative thinking side by side, which Polyop allows the kids not just to go and program robots, not just go and program the drones or many other tools, it allows the kids to use AR to go and give life to any object. I was intrigued by Mike's presentation on 3D images of all the objects. Imagine if each one of them had lives and they could move around and do things within your mobile phones. You don't need to create your own objects to learn about algorithmic content. What is the University of Future? Well, think about innovation economy. The biggest thing, the most important thing is learn about the gig economy. It used to be on all previous economies, you work for an organization for 5 years, for 10 years, 20 years, and you had a full-time job. On gig economy, it's all about multitasking. And think about who is better in multitasking. When I was a young boy, all I had to do was be a good boy and get good grades. My sister, who was only 3 years older than me, she had to be a good girl. She had to get good grades. She had to help me with my homework. She had to help my younger brother with all his affairs. She had to help my mom with shopping, and she had to help my mom with cooking. Her brain developed abilities from a very young age for multitasking, for algorithmic thinking. If you have only 1 hour, do I help my younger brother, older brother, my mom, shopping, cooking, or my own homework? Think about that. So innovation economy allowed the content, the knowledge to be shared with everyone. In innovation economy, not only women can play, they have a major advantage. And that's why I'm here to tell you, in evolution of our species, it's just the beginning of what great things are there to come. And we have seen it already in India. Over 25,000 startups because of entrepreneurship have come. In Middle East, in Africa, but that's just the beginning. Love you all, and thanks for listening.